All right, today we're talking about some of the greatest master builders in history. Not builders of pyramids or cathedrals, but of an entire civilization. We're diving deep into the architects of antiquity, the incredible dynasties of ancient India.
But that really makes you think, doesn't it? How is a great civilization actually built? I mean, one that can stand the test of time for thousands of years. Is it all down to just one person, one genius ruler?
Well, the answer is no. It's not about one ruler. It's about many. Think of it like a massive, ongoing construction project. It's a story about a whole series of architects, each one adding their own unique design to this grand, ever-changing structure. So, let's get into it.
So our first section is all about this idea, architects of a civilization. We're going to look at these ancient dynasties not just as kings and queens, but as the lead architects of their society. I'm talking about the people who laid the foundations, raised the pillars, and literally designed the culture that we can still see echoes of today.
And you know, this is so much bigger than just conquests and borders. It's not about drawing lines on a map. These rulers were shaping the very soul of the subcontinent. Everything from culture and religion to art, science, and even the nitty-gritty of how you run a government.
Okay, so every great building starts with a plan, right? So where does this incredible construction story even begin? Well, we have to go way, way back to find the very first blueprints.
So here's a quick roadmap for our journey through time. We're kicking things off way back around 2500 BCE with the super mysterious Indus Valley Civilization. Then we'll move into the Vedic period, which laid a lot of groundwork, and after that we'll hit the two big ones, the massive imperial projects of the Mauryan and Gupta empires.
Now what's fascinating is that the very first architects, they're completely anonymous. We have no idea who their rulers were, but wow, their work speaks for itself. Just picture it. Cities like Harappa, laid out with grid-like streets and drainage systems so sophisticated they'd put some modern cities to shame. I mean, this level of urban planning was unheard of anywhere else in the world back then. It just screams that they had a super organized, well-run society from the get-go. Okay, so after those incredible early cities faded away, the next critical layer of the foundation was laid during the Vedic period. This is when you see nomadic groups starting to settle down into these little kingdoms called Janapadas. But what's really key here is that this is the era where so many core ideas were born, the foundational philosophies, the sacred texts, the very structure of having a king and a social order. These were the ideas that would literally shape India for centuries.
And it's from those early kingdoms that the first truly massive structure starts to rise from the ground. I'm talking about the Mauryan Empire, and at its helm was an architect, a ruler, whose vision was about to change everything.
So this empire was founded by a guy named Gupta Maurya, and it was already huge. But it was his grandson, the famous Emperor Ashoka, who took it to a whole other level. He expanded it to its absolute peak, controlling pretty much the entire Indian subcontinent. It was an empire built the old-fashioned way, through brutal conquest. But that was all about to change.
And this is the pivot point in our entire story. After one particularly horrific war, Ashoka had this massive crisis of conscience. He was just shattered by the devastation he'd caused, and it led to this complete 180. He embraces Buddhism and this whole new philosophy of peace. You have to understand how radical this was. In an age where a king's power was all about who you could conquer, Ashoka was about to try something completely different. He was going to redefine what it even meant to be a powerful ruler. And here's how that personal change sparked a political revolution. Ashoka's new blueprint for governance wasn't about swords and armies anymore. It was all based on this concept of dharma, basically moral and ethical living. His whole focus shifted to promoting peace, making sure the government was fair, and looking out for the welfare of his people. And he didn't just talk about it. He had these ideas carved into giant stone pillars all over the empire for everyone to see. He literally turned an empire of conquest into an empire of conscience. All right, so after the Mauryans, some time passes, and a new dynasty of architects steps onto the scene. And if you think of the Mauryans as building this strong moral framework for the empire, well, the Guptas are the ones who came in and decorated it. They're the ones who ushered in what we now call India's golden age.
So what's the secret sauce? What's the recipe for a golden age? Well, it's really a perfect storm of three things. Step 1, you need a strong, stable government that keeps the peace. Check. Step 2, you need a thriving economy, and they had that, with trade booming as far away as Rome. And Step 3, you need leaders who actually support the arts and sciences. The Guptas did, and it led to this incredible explosion of creativity and brainpower. And when I say an explosion, I mean it. This period saw just unbelievable progress in pretty much every field you can imagine. We're talking math, medicine, literature, art, you name it.
Now, this might look simple, just the number 0. But don't let that fool you. This is, and I'm not exaggerating, one of India's greatest gifts to the entire world, the concept of 0. It wasn't just a space filler, it was a number. And that one, single, revolutionary idea unlocked the door to all of modern mathematics. Seriously, so much of our tech world today stands on the shoulders of this concept.
And right alongside 0 came another total game changer, the decimal system. The 1, 2, 3 system we all use every single day, perfected during the Gupta era. When you put those two things together, 0 and the decimal system, you suddenly have the tools to do incredibly complex math. It opened up possibilities in science and engineering that were just unthinkable before.
But they didn't stop at math. The innovation was everywhere. Gupta scholars used this new math to make incredible leaps in astronomy. They were identifying planets, calculating the length of the solar year with amazing accuracy. In medicine, they were pioneers in things like plastic surgery. They were creating literary masterpieces in classical Sanskrit. And their temple architecture and sculptures, they're still breathtaking marvels today.
Okay, so we've seen these different building phases, right? The foundations, the moral empire, the golden age. So how does it all come together? What is the lasting legacy of all these ancient architects? Well, first, it's super important to remember that it wasn't just about the big, famous empires. You had all these powerful regional dynasties that were absolutely crucial. Think of rulers like the Kushans up north or the Cholas down south. They were the master networkers. They controlled the trade routes that were like the highways of the ancient world, connecting India to Rome, to Central Asia, to everywhere. And that meant a constant flow of not just goods, but cultures and ideas too. So really, when you zoom out, you can see two main schools of thought on how to build a civilization. On one hand, you've got the path of conquest, building an empire through brute force. But then you have this other path, the path of dharma and diplomacy, expanding your influence through being a moral leader and making smart alliances. And both of these approaches left a huge, deep mark on India.
And here's the amazing part. Their work is still here. This legacy isn't something trapped in a dusty old history book. It's alive. You can hear it in the languages spoken all over India today. You can see it in traditions that have been passed down for generations, in the incredible monuments that are still standing, and even in the ideas about how a government should work.
So in the end, they were so much more than just rulers and warriors. They truly were the architects of a civilization, one that's so rich, so complex, and so incredibly resilient that it still fascinates and inspires people all over the world.
And that just leaves us with one final thought to chew on. The architects of ancient India left their mark on stone and in ideas. It kind of makes you stop and think, doesn't it? What about us? What marks are we leaving behind today? What's going to be the legacy of our time?